Everyone. I'm Wendy Swire, an executive coach with over 20 years of experience, but I'm also coach a lot in brain science and mental fitness. That's what I'm certified in. I have been working with leaders on these topics. And I also come from a financial services background, and I'm the author of a book, Anytime Coaching, Unleashing Employee Performance, helps teach people how to coach. And the best piece of advice I have been given is be curious. Be just radically curious. Follow your curiosity. Whether you're curious about your customers, what's important to them, what are their pinches, really lean into that curiosity and those questions, but also just curious about yourself. Be curious about the products you might be selling, your teams. The more you can lean into curiosity, it has really impacts your brain in many ways.
I love that. Be curious. So where did you learn that? How did you pick that up, Wendy?
I wish I could say it came from somebody. I was going to say, it came from my father. He comes from a sales and leadership background, but it didn't. It really came from my reading and understanding of neuroscience. And I probably picked up on the power of curiosity probably about 10 years ago, because it unleashes so many. If you can ask powerful questions and really tap into curiosity, it can really tap into creativity and innovation and all of it. It just releases such wonderful neurochemicals. Those are the powerful brain chemicals that we have, like dopamine and serotonin. And so it's just, and it's been probably one of my superpowers. I'm just voraciously curious.
Cool. So how do we get more curious? How do we develop that muscle to be more curious if we're not naturally that way?
Well, I think about when you were a child, I don't know if you're a parent or, if your listeners have kids, but kids, like, why do we do this? Why do we have to eat green peas? Why do we have to do that? Like, kids just, why is the sun up? And, why is the moon there? Kids have natural curiosity. So I believe that we are born with it. But what happens is in education, you're not rewarded. If you're always raising your hand, the teacher's like, okay, let me, I don't want to talk, I can't keep calling on you. So you start to shut down your curiosity. So I would say thing one is you have it innately in you. So don't think that, I'm not, I wasn't born with it. I think for a variety of reasons, we're taught, at the meeting, don't ask those questions. You don't want to look, you don't want to look stupid. So we're kind of taught out of it in many ways. The second thing is, Phil, I would say just really follow what you're curious in. Just follow it. Like, I'm really kind of curious about that. Okay, there's a whisper there. Listen to it and pay attention to it. I'm curious about like so many things, whether I want to understand how cryptocurrency works. I don't know if I'll ever invest in it, but I'm just curious. So like, don't be afraid to follow what your instincts tell you.
Ooh, I like that. So we're born with it and we have it, and
Yes.
so don't believe that we don't, and then follow your instincts. We can do those. I think we can do those things. Nothing earth shattering there, nothing super challenging, but I think often we don't. Do you think it's because that little niggle doesn't want us to feel stupid, or do you think, what do you think that is?
Well, I think it's a couple of reasons. One is we don't want to feel like we don't have the answers. We don't want to feel, this is really ties to my work in mental fitness. We have a 24-hour, we have a built-in negativity bias in our brain that goes like, I always say it's like an ADT system. It's wired to keep you safe and, keep you protected. So you're always scanning for threats. So if you perceive, I'm going to ask something or be curious and it might not go well, it might be judged, then, we have this judge saboteur, our inner critic will shut it down for sure. And then again, if you feel that others are going to judge you, then you won't. So a lot of it is our own self-talk and our own inner critics get in the way of being curious and asking these powerful questions.
So how do you get started then in neuroscience and neuroleadership? I mean, that's not 10 years ago, I'd never heard of any of this stuff. Now it's like, I've read a ton of it. So how did you get started?
Well, my story is interesting. I have a financial services background. I'm actually trained as an economist and as a banker. So I'm not a psychologist. I am not a brain scientist. I'm that person in high school. I didn't want to dissect the frog. But what happened to me is a couple things happened. One is I would say a couple things. I would say it's a great question. The first thing that happened to me is when I got trained at coaching, I got trained at Georgetown about, gosh, a long time ago, like 2007. So that's a long time ago. I was trained as a coach. I'd been coaching before, but I went back to school. And someone handed me a book. A colleague handed me a book that had some neuroscience in it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I just read it and I got kind of like, oh, I'm very interested. The second thing that happened at the same time is, as part of my training, one of the faculty members said the following: your brain does not allow you to feel a positive and negative emotion at the same time. You cannot, biologically, the way that neurochemicals work, you cannot feel anger, upset, disappointment, frustration, and love, joy, appreciation, empathy at the same time. And for some reason, it was like, that's really interesting. I want to learn more. I followed the curiosity. I followed it. And for some reason, I just wanted to know, how come the brain can't do positive and negative emotions at the same time? So if a little fact or something comes your way and you just feel the spark of curiosity, just obey it, listen to it. So then basically I self-taught in neuroscience since 2007. I started the DC Neuroleadership Group. I've read everything you can read on science. And now I meet with neuroscientists. I'm really seeped in it. And my passion is communicating the science to lay audiences so everyone can understand. You have the most powerful information transfer system on the planet. Your brain is so powerful. And so I work with my clients to say, if you can just understand something about this superpower you have, then it just unleashes so much.
Wow. That's so interesting that you can learn so much just in self-study. So with that, one of the things that in kind of the prep materials I read was, you have this term called cognitive fitness that was like, what the heck is that? So talk to me about cognitive fitness. What does that mean, Wendy?
Okay. So I think all of us were taught as little kids the importance of physical fitness, right? We had gym class. We were taught to eat well and work out. And, we know now, we're supposed to be working out. Most people know it, whether they do it. But, it has great benefits for your heart and your organ and your lung and your mood and all that stuff, right? Mental fitness, cognitive fitness is no different than physical fitness. Let me restate that. You working on training your brain, just like you go to the gym, is like the gym to do your, strengthen your your abs and your pecs and all that stuff. It's no different with your brain. You have to train it on a variety of different levels. So not only just memory training and cognitive decline that happens as you're aging. I'm not even talking about that. I am talking about the ratio of those positive to negative emotions that you feel throughout the day. Are you aware of that? Do you let your inner critic, your saboteur, it pretty much dominates your thoughts. We have, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of thoughts a day. 90% of them are probably negative, and you're not even aware of it. So you have to basically rewire your brain to have different thought patterns, and that requires training and basically going to a mental fitness gym.
A mental fitness gym. So, is that what we'd Google to find one? How do we find one of these?
Sure.
How do we identify these? Because that's an interesting term.
So the methodology, one of the things I've been doing very heavily in the last 3 years is a methodology in mental fitness called positive intelligence, started by a gentleman named Shirzad Chamine. And I'm trained with Shirzad. I work very closely with him and a group of us at like mastery level. And basically, there is a program I put my clients through. It's a 7-week program where you identify your saboteurs, and then you start to unpack it. And then as part of it, it's on an app, basically. You go to a gym, like basically you go do exercises and training throughout the day to stay focused, to stay in that positive part of your brain, to do a lot of embodiment work. A lot of this mental fitness training, our heads are connected to our body. A lot of it is done through physical, like feeling things. So I can give you an example of what we call positive intelligence rep. I can give you an example of one and we can do it together. But essentially, you really have to remind yourself, am I in a negative emotion? We want to remove and then we basically have to self-command to move into these positive, what we call sage powers. So it's a whole methodology.
Wow. Yeah, let's do an exercise if we could. Let's
Sure.
make that more practical for folks.
Okay, sure. So everybody listening, what I want you to do, and again, these are so simple, but don't be fooled by it, because what happens is to be able to do these kind of mental fitness exercises, you actually have to move from your saboteur brain to your sage brain. And the way you do it is thinking about physical sensations. So here's what I want everybody to do who's listening, and you, Phil. I want you, okay, so just kind of stand up straight, take a deep breath in, and close your eyes if you want, or if you're driving, don't close your eyes. And let's start with just feel your weight of your body on your chair. Feel the weight of your body on your chair. Okay, keep breathing. Okay, now if you get other thoughts that come in, if you get triggered, just let it go. It's normal. Now, I want you to wiggle your toes. All 10 of your toes. Put all of your focus on wiggling your toes. Okay. Feel your feet on the floor. And again, don't worry if you get distracted. If you're thinking about other things, it's totally normal. Come back to the physical sensation. Okay, this is my favorite one. Take 2 fingertips together, and I want you to rub, kind of like what I'm doing. You're going to rub your fingertips like more like this, Phil. If you open your eyes, yeah, you're going to take your 2 fingertips and the finger ridges of your fingertips, very slowly and carefully rub your fingertips against each other with such attention and focus that you can feel the fingertip ridges. Nice and slowly. Feel the fingertip ridges and feel the temperature of your fingers. Slowly notice all those nuances of your fingertip ridges. Okay, keep breathing. If you get distracted, it's totally normal. Just don't judge yourself. Come back, okay? Now rub the palm of one hand against the fingers of the palm of one hand against the fingers. Okay, feel all of those ridges. Really lean into feeling them. Okay, so with that, you can open your eyes. That's
very interesting.
Those are mental fitness exercises that put you into your body, which means you're in the sage part network of your brain, the positive emotion part of your brain, and you quiet that kind of judge negative emotions, particularly when you're critical or if you're a people pleaser. We have many, many saboteurs, but primarily we quiet it, but you have to kind of feel it in your body. So you train yourself. And the coolest thing about this work, Phil, excuse me, is that you can actually do it in real time. So unlike meditation, it's basically applied meditation. Unlike meditation, I meditate every day. My eyes are closed, that kind of thing. You can do this in real time with your eyes open. You can do tactile, you can do visual, you can do breathing, mental fitness work. You can do it with your eyes open. So if I'm in a meeting and I get triggered, I can literally do some of these things. And then I'm basically commanding my brain where I want my brain to go. Wow. What do you think? What's your thoughts?
Well, first, I mean, that is simple. I like that, right? Simple for me is super helpful because, if it's going to be complex, I'm probably not going to do it. So I like that. Secondly, certainly it does require a higher level of focus and intentionality, which I think is also good because, there's a lot of crap out there. And then letting yourself know that it's okay that there's interruptions and stuff, and then just getting back into it, I thought was really good. But I guess my only question is how you said there's all these different exercises. How much of these how many different ones should we have, and how often should we practice this?
Well, look, it's just like going to the gym. The more you go, the stronger you get. It's no different. So at a minimum, you need about 15 minutes a day to rewire your brain, to move and literally what's called neuroplasticity. You're going to start to create neuronal wires of the more positive things you want in terms of your thinking, your emotions, your self-command. So you need, I would say, about 15 minutes according to the research in the PQ methodology. But remember, the most important conversation you have, the most important thinking you do is the thought, like what happens between your two ears. Doesn't matter. Everything else going on, it's that. And that is going to go. That's why the yogis call it monkey brain. Like your brain will take you wherever it wants to go unless you command it and tell it where you want to go. And it's hard. And I love the fact that you like it simple. The exercises are simple. It's the practice, the practice, practice.
Wow. So, yeah. So, and that's encouraging. It's a practice, not an event, which I think is good, you know, much like lifting weights or even, you know, reading, right? It's like, oh, yeah, I read a book as opposed to I read every day. Big difference there, which I like. So let's shift this over to our friends in sales here. How does this help folks sell more or be more of what they want to be and maybe more efficient or more effective at what they do?
Yeah, I love that question. So the first is like, what's your intention? How are you showing up when you're thinking about sales? It's a hard job. I'm from a sales family. And it's, but are you going at it with empathy, curiosity? Are you very kind to yourself? Are you really thinking about higher purpose? Are you going it in that energy? Or are you much more, I've got to achieve these numbers and I'm stressed out and I'm anxious and I beat myself up. I judge myself. I mean, who would you want to purchase from? Which energy? The former. So the first is, it really is a way for you to manage yourself with these qualities that you want. And primarily, much more creativity, joy, innovation, happiness. That you get to be that person. That's the first thing. The second is, we know from neuroscience research that emotions are contagious. It's called, emotional contagion. If you are around people who, they seem kind of happy and fine outside, but they're stressed out, you're going to pick it up. People can smell that in authenticity and inauthenticity. So you are going to literally, I want you to think about, for your listeners, positive emotions are as contagious as negative emotions, just like the flu or COVID or whatever. So if you want others around you, whether it's your sales team, the people that you are managing, or your clients, your customers, you want to be in that positive emotional contagion. The only way you can get there is this really being there yourself authentically and being in that really calm, focused, sage part of your brain.
You mean just screaming, be more positive isn't going to work, right?
No,
like, what is that? No. Serenity Now, right? Frank
Costanza? No. And in today's world, look, I have a lot of empathy, not only for the people in sales, but for the clients and the customers. They're bombarded and overwhelmed and stressed out. So some of it is, I think it's, look, I've done this work for 3 years and it's radically transformed how I am in the world. And my executives, my leaders, I put through it. It has really, really, it's got a lot of research on it, like a lot of research to support this. But yeah, you just show up differently in the world and people feel it. That's bottom line.
That's awesome. That's so encouraging. That's such an opportunity for us to reach something that maybe we previously thought wasn't available to us. My parents, my parents are maybe not happy people, so therefore I'm not happy people, and then that makes my kids not happy. That's not true, right?
No. Well, look, let's be honest. There are the issues of trauma, and there's some things that happen in people's lives that are really, really hard. But the brain is plastic. The brain is malleable. And, again, there's this whole issue of grit and resiliency and sort of push through it. To me, that's it's interesting, hard work. Look, I come from a hard work ethic family. I was raised, you don't have to be the smartest, sharpest tool in the shed, but you can outwork anybody. And I've, raised my kids to say that. However, I also want to work hard in these positive qualities versus a kind of, kind of a hyperachiever, judging, and, it's never good enough. It's like, no, I really am doing a good job. I'm working hard. I want more of that in the world. And yes, you can definitely do it. You just have to work at it. And the brain is malleable. The brain can adapt. The brain can change. We know that from people who've had strokes or accidents. The brain can rebound. So thank your brain, man, because it is a powerful, powerful asset.
Awesome. So how long does it normally take to see some effect? You said 15 minutes a day. So how long do we need to think about this as impatient
7 weeks.
salespeople?
Yeah.
Me.
There's a lot of neuroscience on the power of habit. I've read everywhere from 6 weeks, 7 weeks, 8 weeks to 12 weeks. It takes a while for the neurons. They have to make new neuronal connections. But in about 6, 7, 8 weeks, you start to see results. After a couple months, and the issue is, here's the difference when you're doing this kind of brain work and trying to kind of really change attitudes, behaviors, habits, things like that. Unlike when we go to the gym and we're like, oh, I was lifting 10 pounds. Wow, now I can lift 15. Now I can win 20. This work is subtle. The shifts are there. They're there. You won't get as triggered by people. You won't get as frustrated. You will say, okay, I'm frustrated, but I'm going to self-command. I'm going to go to do some of my PQ reps, and I'm going to look, what's positive here. But you don't automatically go there unless you actually command your brain to do it. And that's why we use
this. So this is work, right? I mean, this is not accidental. And I say that in a good way. Like, that's encouraging, right? This is work that we can do, right?
100%. I want to encourage you, Phil, your team, every listener. Look, your energy follows your intention. If you want to, we have, I don't know when this is going live. Oh, it is live. I mean, but we're towards the end of the year, 2022. You put your mind to it, just, day in and day out. The key thing is, if you have a bad week, you don't do your mental fitness exercises, you're a little more overly critical, or you're judging, you don't beat yourself up. You just keep going. It's totally normal. These saboteurs, these inner critics don't want you to change. They like you where you are. They like it. They have power.
Well, and sadly, so do our surroundings. So this is something that only we can affect, right? We have to take the control back for ourselves and own this internally before it shows up externally, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's an inside game. But, again, in some of the work when we do in mental fitness, we do a lot of visualization, embodiment, a lot of this, like the touch, the fingers, simple things, but we also do a lot of empathy. Like, I have, every time someone really frustrates me and I'm getting triggered, I'm like, okay, let me shift this. Let me have a lot of empathy towards that person. Like, what does it mean for me to be in a brain state where I can have more empathy and kindness and understanding, because they have their own stuff going on. You can't just automatically get there unless you do the training.
Yeah. And I have a question about kids, right? Because kids can often, especially around this time of year, around year end, the holidays, they can absolutely trigger us. Oh. And I'm certainly guilty. So how do we, especially when they're younger, like, how do we have that empathy with and acknowledge that it is frustrating without just making excuses for behavior?
Yeah, I love that question as a parent of 2 boys myself. So the first thing I would do is really lean into gratitude. Gratitude is one of the sage kind of superpowers, and make it a practice. I mean, this is something I make almost all of my clients do. And it ties in very nicely. If you don't, I would love for people, you'll have my contact information. People want to go to the mental fitness gym and learn more about the program. That would be awesome. But if not, and you're looking for a hack that will help you get there, then here's one that I think is really important. Gratitude. The research on brain science and gratitude is incredibly, incredibly powerful. So there's a couple things you can do. One is, I call it a gratitude audit. Before you go to bed at night, what I want you to do is, what are the 10 things you're grateful for? Okay. And again, in sales, well, I didn't get this sale, but I had a good conversation, or I have an invitation to come back. right? So a gratitude audit is, and it's better to write it down. If you put it in your brain before, you're conscious before you go to sleep, this is what your subconscious will work on. Your brain is more active when you're sleeping than it's when you're awake. I don't know if you knew that. The brain is more active. So what we can do on gratitude audit, if your kids are frustrating you, it's holiday season, this and that, let me just start with, what's my own gratitude here? I'm glad my kids are healthy. I know that they're concerned about what's happening at school. Okay. So you really start to have appreciation on gratitude. Then you can also teach your kids that. One of my favorite things is around the table. There's a couple questions I always like to, help my kids with. What did you learn? What did you fail at? Like what didn't go well? Let's celebrate that, because that creates a growth mindset. Okay, that didn't go well. Okay, what'd you learn from it? Great. Let's celebrate, or let's learn from our mistakes and failures, right? And the third is, okay, what are you grateful for today? Well, I'm grateful for my gaming system. Okay, that's a good start. Is there something else? So you have to train, kids can train to, you can train your kids to do this as well. And again, we do it around the dinner table or in the carpool if we don't have dinner together. Just like, hey, one thing that went well today, one thing you learned that's new. That was pretty much one of my go-to questions as a parent. What's one thing you learned that's new? Let's celebrate that. So these little things are the types of things that will start to rewire the brain. And they're all, to me, in that mental fitness category.
Absolutely. So where's this mental fitness gym that you talk about? Where can we learn more about that if we want to practice this and get really strong?
For sure. Okay. So for your listeners, I have created a separate landing page on my website, which I'm going to put in chat now. I don't know if I'm allowed to put chat in, but I'm going to send it to you, and then you can share with your listeners. So there you will get a link to take an assessment, so you can learn what your biggest kind of negative triggers are, right? So what those things are. And then from there, on my website, there'll be plenty of information, www.swiresolutions.com. But I'm going to send you and make sure your listeners have the special landing page, which has information. And there's questions there, and then that you can take the assessment. And if they're interested in really getting to know more about this mental fitness work, they can reach out to me. I've put leaders through it. I've put teams through it. I've put family members through it. Okay. So that's coming right now to you. Okay. I can chat here. Yep. It's coming out to you right now. So, if you Google Swire Solutions, I'm the only one. It'll come up. And there's stuff on my landing. There's stuff there for you, but here's a special landing page for the Sales and Leadership podcast listeners. And that's coming right now that, my team created. And there's a link to that assessment. And then people should reach out to me. They should definitely reach out to me if they want more information. And I can tell you how to get more information and the cost and all of that stuff.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Well, I'll pop that on the screen here so folks can see that. For those of you that are listening, it's at swiresolutions.com/sales-and-leadership-podcast. I'll link that up in the show notes as well, so that everyone has that. That's super generous. Thank you for that, Wendy.
100%. And the assessment's free.
Yeah.
The assessment's free. It's 5 minutes. And at least you'll know what those triggers are, what's causing you to go on those negative emotions. And then the app work and the gym work, it's a whole methodology. Not crazy expensive, but it does require work more than the cost. It's about 5 hours a week, but you will see results in about 7 weeks is what we say.
Awesome. Lots of great stuff. Great resource there for everyone as well. Wendy, if people were going to get started, one thing that they can do today, maybe this week, that they can do, that exercise that you shared is awesome. Is there anything else that they can do to maybe get prepared to be ready to accept some of this insight?
100%. So I think I gave you the gratitude audit, before you go to sleep. That's one of my top go-to exercises. And same thing, when you wake up in the morning, just before you put your feet down, just set an intention. like today, and again, those affirmations and positive statements that someone, oh, it's kind of doesn't work. Actually, it does work. Your brain doesn't know differently. I would say the following: before you get on your next sales call or your next meeting where you think you might be triggered, take 3, it's going to sound what grandma told you, but it really works. You do your breathing. So don't jump from meeting to meeting. You catch your breath and you just say, what part of my brain am I in right now? Am I in my negative brain, or I'm in the more of that positive prefrontal cortex thinking brain? Okay. And you literally, I will tell my clients, we're going to do box breathing, what the Navy SEALs do, or do 3 deep breaths to calm your sympathetic nervous system and reset. Don't jump from thing. That's very reactive. That's very restless. Let me get settled. What's my intention? How do I, and in my book, Anytime Coaching, the 6 or 7 word question is, how do I want to show up right now? How do I want to show up? Do I want to show up with that kind of, and I want to be in this part of my brain, the positive, thoughtful, curious, kind, empathetic part of my brain. It's a different network. So even by asking those little questions, doing some breathing, setting an intention, those tiny little practices, it's like atomic habits, tiny habits, they will build up for you.
I love that. What part of my brain am I in right now is a powerful question. Powerful book too. Forgot to show that off at the beginning of the show. This is Wendy's book, Anytime Coaching, Unleashing Employee Performance. I got the 2nd edition for that. So thank you, Wendy. Thank you for all the resources. Folks, if you want to get to know Wendy more, go to swiresolutions.com. There'll be a link in the show notes for the special assessment and the resources. And Wendy, I'm just so grateful for you. You shared a lot of actionable stuff that helps us get out of our monkey brain and into our happy brain so we can be stronger and work with that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I just hope everybody knows that everyone can do this.
Absolutely. Perfectly reachable for everyone. Give it a shot.